NBC News has just confirmed that actor Malcolm Jamal Warner has died at the age of 54. Authorities in Costa Rica telling NBC News that Warner accidentally drowned while swimming in the ocean on Sunday. Warner is best known for, of course, his Emmy-nominated role as Theo Huxtable, Cliff's son, on The Cosby Show. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas is here in studio with more. Also joining us is television host and entertainment journalist Shagun Odualawu. Chloe, I'm going to start with you. What more do we know right now about the circumstances surrounding his death?
That's right. So, Sam, we know that this incident took place on Sunday in Costa Rica. He was on a family vacation. He was swimming off of the coast of a town called Cocles in the province of Limon. He was swimming at Playa Grande. I mean, I've visited Costa Rica a few times. I was there with my family a few years ago, and those currents can be very strong. And it appears that he died by drowning. Costa Rica's Judicial Investigation Police confirming to NBC News that he was declared dead by the Red Cross and that some bystanders actually tried to come to his rescue. But unfortunately, it was too late. NBC News, we have reached out to his family for comment. He leaves behind his wife and a young daughter.
Everything isn't always a conspiracy. Listen, I'll be the first to admit that. I agree with you. But listen, if we're being objective, we can all admit that there are weird things that happen coming out of Hollywood, especially when it comes to drownings. From Whitney Houston, Natalie Wood, Rodney King, Dolores O'Riordan, Naya Rivera, Jose Fernandez, Carol Wayne, and the list goes on. There's a pattern that happens in Hollywood, and at the very least, it's at least worth looking into. And I'll be honest with you, after I looked into Malcolm Jamal Warner, which, by the way, I send my condolences to him and his family, this video is meant to be in no way disrespectful. But we have to be honest and we have to look at the patterns here. And I have to tell you, I wouldn't have caught this pattern if I hadn't just completed the Martin Luther King documentary on this channel. Otherwise, it probably would have flew right over my head, or I wouldn't have known to even think about this. And I was thinking to myself, what are the chances? What's the likelihood that could have happened like that 3 times in a row? So what I'm going to do in this video, I'm not saying that somebody did something to him. That's not what I'm stating. We don't have enough information yet. But based on the information that we have, I'm going to just connect some dots, and I'm going to leave you all as the audience to decide if it means something, if it means nothing, or what it could potentially mean, if it does mean something. And I'm going to start with Martin Luther King. I know it sounds random, but I need you to just stick with me. I'm going to start with Martin Luther King. Then I'm going to go to Obama. Believe it or not, Obama. And then we're going to end this out with Malcolm Jamal Warner and what they're telling us happened to him. If you want access to additional videos you cannot find here on YouTube, please consider becoming a member of the Patreon. Link is in the description. For my current Patreon members, please be on the lookout over the next couple of days or so. My really big Shannon Sharpe video is coming up soon. Before we get into the video, just hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm so the video can reach more people like yourself. I would really, really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into it. So in my Martin Luther King video, we talked about something called the Boule. The Boule, for those of you who don't know, the Boule is, I'm going to try to do most of this off memory. The Boule is essentially the black version of Skull and Bones. For those of you who don't know, Skull and Bones is a fraternity that the Bushes and other famous people came out of, coming out of Yale University. Well, the Boule was created in the early 1900s, and essentially it's this quote-unquote secret society. Secret society don't necessarily mean that nobody knows about it, but it's the things that they adhere to and the things that they do once they become a part of the organization that is, for the most part, secret. But there's been a lot of things leaked over the years. It's up to you to choose if you believe it or not. But from my research and what we covered in the Martin Luther King documentary, my understanding of the Boule was created in the early 1900s. There are many people that are part of the Boule, from Diddy, Bill Cosby. Yes, that's going to connect to Malcolm Jamal Warner. Bill Cosby. I have reason to believe that LeBron James, Martin Luther King Jr. was a part of the Boule, and many other people as well. And I'm going to delve much deeper into the Boule and what the logo means, many other members who are part of it, what the purpose, the overall purpose of the organization is, what they have to do to join the organization once I cover the Shannon Sharpe situation on my Patreon. I'm going to cover all of that in my Shannon Sharpe video. So be on the lookout for that if you are a member of the Patreon. But once again, if you are not, link is in the description. Now, the Boule, many people out there, including myself, believe that the Boule can be considered like the middleman between regular black people in society, with the Boule being the elite so-called black people in society, and they have to answer to their bosses or who they adhere to, and that being the people that quote unquote run the world, the people who pull the strings that are above them, many of them being, most of them for the most part being billionaire white individuals. That's just a fact. Well, one of the things that they have to allegedly adhere to is that they are allowed to live certain lifestyles. They are allowed to get away and do certain things and lead certain causes only if they stick to the script and do what they're supposed to be doing and not step out of line. Believe it or not, we covered this in the Martin Luther King documentary once again. Martin Luther King was also a part of the Boule, and many people thought that the civil rights movement was strictly about gaining equal rights for so-called Black Americans and minorities. And yes, that is something that came from the civil rights movement, but that's not the only thing that came from it. As I believe, the Boule was founded by, it's said to have been founded by 2 African-American members and a couple of Jewish individuals as well. Those Jewish individuals, myself and many other people believe, were spies. And there's very good information out there to back this claim. Well, fast forward to Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. is pretty much the leader of the civil rights movement for the most part. And he had an individual that was right by his side, pretty much his right-hand man, a guy by the name of Steve Levinson. Steve Levinson was a Jewish businessman who a lot of people know this and a lot of people don't know this. Steve Levinson was the person behind a lot of Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches, including the I Have a Dream speech. That's right. Martin Luther King Jr. did not write that speech himself. Steve Levinson was the person who heavily wrote that speech on behalf of Martin Luther King Jr. That's a fact. What's also a fact is that Steve Levinson was the person that Martin Luther King Jr. answered to and consulted with before he went on to and did any interviews, before he gave any speeches. This is the person that was right by his side that he consulted with. That's a fact. It's public information. It's also public information, it's a fact, that Steve Levinson was one of maybe 2 individuals that heavily played a role in the official autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr. after he was assassinated. So he played a big role in the perception and the storyline of who Martin Luther King Jr. was and how he was remembered. How is this relevant? Because I believe that Martin Luther King Jr. laid the groundwork and laid the foundation with these so-called communist individuals that was around him to lead the country in a particular direction, because the FBI, regardless of how you feel about them, the U.S. government had reason to believe that Steve Levinson and a couple of other individuals around Martin Luther King Jr. were communist spies. And it is also a fact, and it's public information, you can look this up, that President Kennedy, once Martin Luther King Jr. and his crew visited the White House, and I forget the year, President Kennedy actually told Martin Luther King Jr. and gave him a warning that, hey, we have reason to believe that such and such and such and such are communist spies. They have communist ties. They're affiliated with the KGB. I want you to be careful, and be careful who you keep around you. This is public information. Anyways, I have reason to believe that the civil rights movement was a front that was used to, yes, gain equal rights in some cases for so-called Black Americans, but it was also used for multiple other reasons as well, to lead the country in a particular direction for their globalist agenda, which I believe in nature is Luciferian. And I spoke about why once again in the Martin Luther King documentary. Why is this important? Because they needed Martin Luther King, they needed a Black individual to be able to set the groundwork to lead the country in a particular direction. That brings me to Barack Obama. Barack Obama, as we know, is the first so-called Black president, or half Black president, however you want to perceive him. Most of the Black community don't look at Barack Obama as of today as if he didn't really do a whole lot for the Black community, so to speak. But one thing that Barack Obama is remembered for is legalizing and looking out for the LGBTQ community. Again, this is not an attack on the LGBTQ community. I'm just stating the facts. What Barack Obama is known for. Well, Barack Obama just so happened to be trending right now because he went onto his wife Michelle Obama's podcast and had some very interesting things to say about what he thinks young boys need in their life outside of just a great father and a great mother. Take a listen.
And there were a bunch of different kinds of men. Mm-hmm. You know, there were men that were kind of soft-spoken, and then there were men that were loud, and there were men who were engineers, and then there were men who were police officers, or they drove, a jitney cab. Yeah. Right? And that's one of the things that I think a lot of times boys need is not just exposure to one guy,
One dad.
One dad. No matter how good the dad
is. He can't be
like,
everything.
He can't be everything. And then that boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
One of the most valuable things I learned as a guy was I had a gay professor in college at a time when openly gay folks still weren't outlawed, who became one of my favorite professors and was a great guy and would call me out when I started saying stuff that was ignorant. You need that to show empathy and kindness. And by the way, you need that person in your friend group so that if you then have a boy who's gay or non-binary or what have you, they have somebody that they can go, okay, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
Right. So that, I think, is creating that community. I know it's corny, but that's what they need.
Why is this important? This is important because Barack Obama is known by many people as being used as a front to bring in this agenda in this country, to further push the country in a particular direction. Many people may call it progressive. Many other people may call it something else. Well, Dr. Umar Johnson, regardless of how you feel about him, Dr. Umar Johnson made an incredible point and probably put it better than I could ever put it in 1,000 years, and exposed the agenda and the reason why Barack Obama was allowed to become president and what the overall agenda was behind his presidency. Take a listen.
One of the reasons Barack Obama was made president is so he could normalize the LGBTQ agenda in the black community. Think about it. If George Bush tried to push homosexuality in the black community, we would have rejected him.
Of course.
If Donald Trump tried to push homosexuality in the black community, we would have rejected him.
Of course.
You could only normalize that through a blackface.
Through a black man.
Obama was made president to make it normal. When Barack Obama became president, homosexuality was not a mainstream issue, nor was it accepted as a mainstream alternative to the traditional family.
I gotta look at
By
the
the time he left office in 2008, they were completely running everything.
Was
and
that
if
the
you
year?
even disagreed with, I'm gonna give you an example.
It is.
I do
You
a
might
lot
be
of
right.
graduation speeches, right? At the June.
Okay.
Elementary school, middle school, high school. I normally do about 20 graduation speeches a season.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
When Barack Obama was president, I might have did 5. It dropped significantly. Schools who I normally did their commencement, they was calling me up, Dr. Umar, we can't have you speak this year. Why? The LGBTQ say you don't agree with them, you can't speak. I said, but this is a graduation speech. This ain't politics. This is motivation. Get ready for the rest of your life.
Right.
What does LGBT got to do with my 10-minute speech motivating these 12th graders to make sure you do well in college?
Right.
Well, we have LGBT teachers and they saying you're insensitive and you're homophobic. So I saw how not agreeing with the lifestyle could limit your opportunities in life. You had people getting fired from jobs, not for pushing hate, because I don't agree with hate.
Right.
I don't agree with the lifestyle.
Right.
But I don't want harm for any human, no matter what their situation is.
That's the way to do it.
But the way that they did it was the LGBTQ said, to disagree with me is to hate me. They created a narrative that if you disagree, you support violence against me.
Right.
You don't want us to work. You want us to be shot, killed, man. We never said that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
We just said we don't agree with the lifestyle.
Right.
But they turned it into a whole campaign against anybody who disagreed with it. And that's another reason why a lot of people didn't vote for Kamala Harris, black men, because they got tired of the effeminization. And then they took it to Africa. Obama started it. He went to Africa. He went to Liberia. He went to Rwanda, a couple other places. He said, if you don't legalize gay marriage, we cutting off your aid.
That reminds me of Martin Luther King Jr. They needed a black face. They needed that person, especially it was a completely different time then in the 50s and the 60s, of course, as opposed to 2008. But nonetheless, these two individuals, I believe, was being used to push other agendas as well because they already checked a couple of minority boxes, so to speak. Well, Barack Obama, as I'm sure a lot of you all remember, but for those of you who don't know, Barack Obama had a chef that actually was found deceased a couple of years ago to this date actually, due to drowning. We're going to read this article that will supposedly debunk some conspiracy theories surrounding the death of Obama's chef. It says here, the Obama family's personal chef had been writing a tell-all book when he was found dead with injuries to his head in less than 4 feet of water. The 911 call also didn't go out until his body washed up on shore and Obama's quote-unquote personal coroner conducted the autopsy. That's the claim. AP's assessment, so this is supposed to be them debunking this claim. False. Massachusetts State Police reiterated Monday that Tafari Campbell, that's the gentleman's name, did not sustain any head wounds and was found in nearly 8 feet of water, not in less than 4 feet of water, when he drowned last Sunday. In addition, the 911 call came in shortly after he fell off his paddleboard, not hours later, and Obama's physician didn't do the autopsy. The state medical examiner's office did, police said. Meanwhile, no evidence has been presented to support the claim that the former White House sous chef was working on a book about the Obamas. The notion originated from a social media account known to spread misinformation. What I will say about this article, first and foremost, is rest in peace to him, but it doesn't make it any better at all if he was found in 4 feet of water or 8 feet of water. How can you, yes, it's possible to drown in either one of those, but how? 8 feet of water is just, depends on how tall he was. It's just weird. It's just weird that things like that happen. And then these conspiracies come out and then they're debunked. But stick with me, because his death was actually 2 years ago to this date. So it was the same Sunday in July, 2 years ago, this happened with Obama, the same time that Obama is trending right now with this ridiculous situation that he said on his wife's podcast. But stick with me. That brings us to Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr., a lot of people don't know, or a lot of people forget, that after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, his mother was also assassinated at their church. The story goes that this gentleman came into the church, this midget, this really short, I believe African-American kid, came into the church with the plan to assassinate Martin Luther King Jr. Sr. But when he came into the church, he couldn't find the dad of Martin Luther King Jr., so he saw his mother first, and he pow-powed Martin Luther King Jr.'s mother in the church. Well, what a lot of people don't know is that a year after Martin Luther King Jr. passed away, there was another family member that passed away, and that was his brother. His name was Alfred Daniel King. You want to know how he passed away? A drowning. Would you like to know the date that he passed away? I remember when I was reading Malcolm Jamal Warner's story, I remember thinking to myself, dang, this sounds very similar to what happened to Martin Luther King Jr.'s brother. I said, I wonder what date he passed away. And I went and looked, and I couldn't believe it. He passed away July 21st, 1969. Malcolm Jamal Warner passed away by drowning as well, July 20th, 2025. But what's interesting is the story wasn't reported until the next day, which would be July 21st, the same day that Martin Luther King Jr. brother passed away. But let's connect a little bit more of the dots, and let's read this article talking about the suspicious death of Martin Luther King Jr.'s brother. It says here, the forgotten story of A.D. King, Martin Luther King's brother. While A.D. King's death was never investigated as a murder, some members of his family strongly believe he was killed. Absolutely, he was murdered, Naomi King told the Times. He was an excellent swimmer. There was no water in his lungs. He was in the fetal position. He had a bruised forehead, similar to the Barack Obama chef's story, as they said that he had bruises on his head. Now she's saying that, I believe this is his wife, said that he had bruises on his forehead, rings around his neck, and he was in his underwear. He was murdered. The truth may never be known, but what is certain is that A.D. King played a vital role in the civil rights movement, and that of lieutenant to his older brother and a trusted soldier in the struggle for equality. I just found it very interesting that, because in the weirdest way, I think it's drawing attention back to Obama and the whole chef story. It's like, what are the chances that these connections are here? Like, you all pass away by way of drowning in July on a Sunday around July 20th, July 21st. It's just weird. Again, I don't even want to make this about some huge conspiracy theory. I'm just saying, at the very least, we can side eye this and say, is there something here? This is strange to me. Yes, people pass away all the time. Yes, it's possible for celebrities to pass away accidentally, just like regular humans. I agree with you. But this right here, I found to be extremely suspicious. That's just my biggest point. But y'all tell me what y'all think. Do y'all think there's nothing here? Do y'all think there's something here? If so, what do you think could be here? I don't know. Y'all give me your thoughts. Once again, condolences to the family. I want to give a special shout out to More Black Balloons. He actually made the Obama and the Malcolm Jamal Warner date connection. So I thought that was very interesting. I just wanted to take a little bit further and dig a little bit deeper, because I just feel like certain narratives are pushed by way of somebody passing away. And we know by now that Hollywood plays weird games. They're big into numerology. You all give me your thoughts and tell me what you think about this, though. I'm Demetrius. I go by DD. That's all for this one, man. Until next time. Peace.
Oh yeah, Didi got a podcast.